Okay, now is the time. Okay, good morning, everyone. So I hope all of you are fine and doing well. Last few class, I think it's okay. So last two classes we discussed briefly about the teaching of dependent origination, and last class we also have some discussion about the consciousness in early Buddhist literature. So I hope that all of you got the point, that all of you understand. Despite that, just before our class started, Sujan asked me some question about consciousness, about from this life to next life. So it is to be honest, again I am sharing that I'm just providing the idea, that the information regarding the early Buddhist literatures. And uh, I mean, early Buddhist literature we categorized from the Buddha's time to until the second Buddhist council. So Nikaya text, we say Nikaya, Nikaya, all the Nikaya text, yeah, not commentary. So now we are today we are providing the going to discuss about middle way and the three characteristics of or three marks regarding the Buddhist teaching. So middle way, this is a very common things you all of you heard. What is the middle way? Maybe sometime Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist teaching described as the teaching of middle way. So it has a many definition, many meanings. I mean, what is exactly middle way? So as we all aware that after Prince Siddhartha renounced his worldly life and he went through the very hard practice for 6 years. So it was a kind of motivation, very austere practice. So from this aspect, Buddha himself, just before his enlightenment, he realized he needs to follow the teaching of middle way. So now we are going to share that what is middle way from the early Buddhist literature. Just a moment, yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Share the screen. Okay. Okay. So what is middle way? It is a very vast topic somehow, but here the initially the very after the Buddha's awakening, he described middle way in avoiding self-indulgence and self-mortifications. So according to the in the scriptures and Upanishad period, Upanishad is the earlier earlier period of before the Buddha, actually, So according to the Upanishad and according to the early Buddhist scripture, we see that there are many types of the austere practice in the past. So some of the practice is so extreme, Sometime according to the text mentioned that the yogi or the practitioner, he doesn't take food. He doesn't. He just it's like a self mortification. Like, I mean, very he becomes choked and skinned. His body. It's sometimes it's self torturing as well. So therefore, Buddha, Prince Siddhartha, he went to 6 years austere practice, and these are two extreme level of practice. So he could not he could not gain what he needs to achieve. So he realized that somehow he needs to follow middle way. It should be neither self-indulgence nor self-mortification. Now, what is self-indulgence? So in the very first discourse, it named the Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutra, or in English, setting the wheel in the motion from Samyutta Nikaya. In this text, Buddha said the self-indulgence is devoted to sensual pleasure with reference to sensual objects, base, vulgar, common, ignorable, and unprofitable. I mean, in this statement, it is clear that the the self-indulgence, this practice doesn't make sense along the way. So he needs to avoid that extreme path. Then Buddha again he described self-mortification is devoted to self-affliction, which is painful, ignorable, and unprofitable. So I am providing you, maybe many of you are aware of the brief background about the first discourse of the Buddha, I mean the first sermon, but I'm just sharing a brief story. After the Buddha's, the time he was practicing, he has many fellow monks, fellow ascetics. So when the Buddha, just before his enlightenment, he started to eat some food, and he started to avoid the self mortification. Some of his friends, ascetics, they left. So there are 5 ascetics who followed him for 6 years during the time when he went to this very extreme level of practice. So, but when Buddha started to eat food, and he followed he avoiding the self indulgence or self mortification, these two paths, and the 5 of those ascetic they left him. So after he enlightenment, when the after he as we know that the night of enlightenment, it divided into 3 periods: first watch of enlightenment, second watch, and third watch. So first watch, he realized the truth of the karma, I mean past life. He has a past life memories. And the second watch of night, he discovered the karma and its resultant. In the third watch of the night, he discovered the teaching of, or the doctrine of, dependent origination that we discussed in our earlier 2 classes. So, so now, I mean, all the things, all the practice went further when the Buddha started to follow middle way path. So since he started to observe the middle way, his fellow monks, the fellow ascetics, they left him. So therefore, after the Buddha's enlightenment, after he became awakening or realized that what is the truth, he found himself that, I mean, he decided himself to share the information with his fellow ascetics. So therefore, he walked from the place of enlightenment to Varanasi. It is a bit far, maybe 300 to 400 kilometers is approximately. It's very far. So that time, they walked. Maybe sometime maybe they used the river, alongside the river, some boat as well. But according to the scripture, we just know that Buddha walked from Gaya to the Saranath or Varanasi. But anyway, the point is that after he arrived to Varanasi, as he met 5 of his ascetics, and their name is Kondanya, Badriyo, Bappa, Mahanama, and Asaji. There are 5 ascetics. So this ascetic, the Buddha delivered the sermon. He said that, which is known as that setting the wheel in the motion, or Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutra. So then he described that what how he was benefited when he avoided all the self mortification, and which could not be make sense along way to his practice. So please avoid these 2 extreme practice. There's no self-indulgence and there's no self-mortification. Try to stay with the middle way exposition. It's neither not go extreme nor extreme. So that is the first at first time we heard the teaching of the middle. I mean the path of middle way from the first sermon. And another time in the according to the according to the Tripitaka or Pali Nikaya text, there is one sutra. It's named a Kaccayana Gotra Sutra. It's very popular sutra. Many even the Sanskrit tradition or Mahayana tradition also they study this sutra when they discuss about the middle way. So in the sutra, Kaccayana Kaccayana was one of the very chief. I mean one of the very prominent disciple of the Buddha himself. So he explained to the Buddha. He said that my dharma, the teaching I produced and I offered to my fellow monks, fellow fellow people, fellow Buddhists, or fellow Dharma followers, it is based on middle way doctrine. Now, what is middle way? He said, everything exists. That is one extreme. Everything does not exist. That is a second extreme. Sorry. Avoiding these two extremes, the Tathagata means the Buddha, teaches the Dharma via the middle. So he did not accept everything. It's neither everything exists. So he's talking something about the permanent, is existence, the permanent entity. So it is somehow like the materialistic or materialism standpoint. Materialism. So there was one school in the contemporary time of the Buddha and also in the past Upanishad period. This is called the school of materialism. The belief that the atta, that the soul, is exist forever, like one life to another life. So it has a based on this concept, a lot of viewpoint developed. So it is completely wrong notion somehow. So everything exists is not possible. Like another thing, another way I say, like for example, like I have my cell phone. So I take care of my cell phone very well. I put a nice cover, you know. So I have to believe that within a year or 2 years or maybe 5 years, it will be broken. It can be broken. It can be it can be something happen. But if I start to believe that I take care of I mean, of course, we need to be take care our belongings, but it doesn't mean that we need to accept that this belonging should be exist for forever. It is changeable. So, to thinking something or accepting some our belongings, or not only belongings, like our belief, our faith, is forever existence. This is the completely, this is the totally the wrong view. So everything exists. This is the one extreme level of belief. It's one extreme. It's an extreme level of belief. Everything does not exist. That is the very, maybe you can be asked a question, maybe everything does not exist. Yeah, we all know. Maybe it is impermanence. Yes, this is impermanence. But since people believe everything does not exist, so there's another school, this is called nihilist school. They don't believe karma. There's, according to this school, like after people die, there will be nothing actually. Like there's no need to be think about that. So I mean, our entity is is disappeared. So there is no consequence about karma. So that is actually very extreme level of belief. Very dangerous too somehow. Like if someone doesn't believe karma, I mean, it's not need to be go to the Buddhist or something. It's just general concept. If someone does not accept that, I mean, if he does something bad or if you're killing someone, and without thinking like a maybe there's no consequence. It's somehow like a make the society or make the people chaos. So it's not health practice. It is, maybe the society became a very violence too. So karma, the notion of karma, somehow bring the society, bring the people in the positive aspect, and bring the people into the peace somehow. Like if we started to think in that way, like if we do something good, wholesome action return to us. If people do something bad, unwholesome action return to us, return to them. So the believing the wholesome and unwholesome somehow like a, it doesn't matter like you believe karma or not karma. It's somehow like a make the rationally, from rational aspect, make the society very peaceful. Like everybody would like to do something good for others, for yourself, for oneself and for others too. So doing not only good for others, only good for himself or herself. So somehow, so like the you see that the development of the notion of karma evolved, you know, good and bad. Then it evolved, and the doctrine, the teaching was expanded in, you know, then the later on it added like a this life and next life and something like this. So what's happened like past life and this life. So it's very hard, like as even the Sujan also, we have this conversation just before we start our class. Like it's very hard to prove our past life, and also very hard to prove our next life as well. But whether, I mean, you know, it is very higher consciousness people, maybe there's someone who is very extraordinary practitioners, maybe they can be proof about that. I mean, you know, uh, but what we can see, like in general aspect, like we are doing something good, we think something positively, we think the nature about greenery process, maybe, and also we thinking about our consequence, like a deforestation. We know that if we cut the trees, it make, you know, problem for our, you know, global warming is rising up. So you know the mountain and the Himalaya are melting. North Pole and South Pole also, North Pole is melting. So you know, so the the level of water in the sea are, you know, rising up somehow. So we see the consequence, you know. So we have to be protect our nature. So by not cutting the trees, or planting more and more trees, and also not using plastic, you know, all this general stuff, we are aware what, you know, what should we do and what should we not do. So like encountering to Katyayana, like one of the, you know, the disciple of the Buddha, the blessed one, he said, everything exists, that is one extreme. Everything does not exist, that is second extreme. Avoiding these two extremes, he used the term, actually it is a Buddha's word, avoiding these two extremes, the Tathagata teaches the Dharma via the middle. The Tathagata means the Buddha. Tathagata, it is actually Pali and Sanskrit term. Tathagata, that means like a das who has gone. So Tatha and Gata, das who has gone. But there's another term, Tatha and Agata, das who has gone and come back. But Tathagata, that means das who has gone. Like the Buddha, he he has gone, like he entered into the state of nirvana. So the term nirvana, it never be come back. You are extinguished your you know, uh, your life. I mean, your becoming. There will be no birth, there will be no death. That is the nirvana. So Tathagata, the Buddha, is beyond the birth and death. Thus, who has gone. That is the one another meaning for Tathagata. So anyway, so the middle way, the as we come back, so middle way, it can be many aspect. We can be explained, but early Buddhist sense of middle way, we explain like avoiding the two extreme viewpoints. So It can be like avoiding the extreme viewpoint of the everything exists or eternalism concept, we avoid, and everything does not exist, something like a annihilism or nihilist concept, we avoid. And another one, avoiding the self-indulgence and self-mortifications. So these are the notion of the middle way. So may I ask, may I know that if you have any kind of inquiry regarding this, or I can go ahead. Okay, so that means that no, no, no question. That means I can go ahead. So maybe that we can ask a discussion about after this session. So now we are heading to three three characteristics or the three marks of Buddhism. It is very common. You can hear from any Buddhist practitioners. They say anicca, dukkha, anatta. That means impermanent, suffering, and non-self. So these are the big topic, huge topic. So Buddhist scriptures, many times, many ways, it explains all compounded things are impermanent. All compounded things are suffering or unsatisfactory or dukkha. And all dharmas or all things, including this unconditioned, are non-self or without self. That is actually a very complicated terms sometimes, self and non-self. So now, what is impermanent? And how can you understand? It is the impermanent. So actually, generally we can see the impermanence. The term impermanent is it is in the East very commonly they use. They say that uh, like if people die in a very common language, they you say that oh anicca vata sankhara. That means all component things are impermanent. If people, anicca is a very common term, and it was this term they used for many thousand years. Somehow like it's impermanent or impermanency. It is the truth, one of the truth in regarding the early Buddhist teachings and its scriptures. So I give you a little definition from the Pali to English dictionary. It says the term anicca is a Pali, and Sanskrit say anitya. It means impermanent, change, or it also can say that impermanency. In the early Buddhist scriptures, the character of impermanence is pointed out in a variety of terms, such as arising or passing away. So, upada vaya dharma, like everything is, what is arising? It is ceasing. That's why I said arising and passing away. Then it mentioned change of what has been. So it's like everything is changeable. So same like my for example my pen. So it was I bought a few years ago, but so within few years when I bought the color of this pen, the shape of the beauty of this pen is not same 2 years later. It's changing. It's a kind of like I can see that some of the color are taking it's disappearing somehow. So it's changeable. It is the truth. And another one is it is subject to change. So what is born is sure to perish. So most of the time, according to the doctrine of dependent origination, we know that all we have our birth, then we can have a decay, we go to the old age and die. So we became old, we all of us will die. That's truth. That is the universal truth. But the thing is that most of time we don't like to accept the truth of our body, the truth of our death. We like to accept the truth of our birth, but most of time, many of us, we still have a concept. Maybe I can stay longer period. I can live for 100 years. Maybe I can live for 90 years or 80 years, something. But we will be die. It is the truth. We have a old age. This truth. Every single step, every day, we are heading to like we are I mean declining. Our body is declining slowly. It's truth. So what is born is sure to perish. So that is truth. That is impermanence. We accept the reality of impermanence. So the truth of impermanence is truth. And another way, according to the, it is actually is mentioned in the Nikaya scriptures. Our five aggregates, these are subject to impermanence. So our five aggregates, we know that form, rupa, form, feeling, vedana, perception, sanya, sankhara, formation or mental formation, and jnana or consciousness. So, I mean, I hope that all of you remember the last week we also discussed a lot of word about nama and rupa. So nama we say mentality, rupa is a form or materiality. So our form, as all the five aggregates, are impermanence. The form is like a lamp of foam. This simile was provided in the scripture. It also said, our feeling is like a water bubble, and perception is mirage. Formations are like a plantain trunk, and consciousness is like an illusion. I hope that I hope that all of you catch the meaning. So it's just providing the idea how everything is changing, how feeling is changing moment to moment, how form is changing moment to moment. Just like my pen, it was 2 years ago, and after 2 years later, this pen is it's not the same. Like color is not same like before. It was so glazing and shining when I got this pen. But now it's changing its color. So form is changing. Like form, our body is changing, and feeling is like a bubble. So feeling, good feeling and bad feeling. Sometimes now it is we are in a good mood right now. We are studying history of Buddhist thought. Maybe suddenly some of you got sudden phone call, maybe some uncertainty, some some unexpected news came. Our feeling change. Perception is like a mirage. So perception, we can be, it's like it's still a kind of illusion as well. So it can be right or it can be wrong. So based, same like a consciousness too. It's like illusion. So in Sanskrit, it's a Maya, or Pali too, Maya. It's some like it's not truth. It's unreal. It's it could be or it can be. This is impermanence. So all the five aggregates are impermanence, and that's another terminology like mind. The mind is impermanence. I mean, the mind is impermanence or something like. I'm sorry that my limitation of my language, like I mean, the thinking, our feeling is impermanence, or mind, or mental thought process. It's also impermanence. It's not stable. It has it change moment to moment, moment to moment, and moment to moment. So I just providing how the to understand this idea. A drawing is designated in its diversity by the mind. Mind is more diverse than drawing. Compared to our physical world, our mental world is fast changing. Benefits of cultivating the perception of impermanence. It eliminates all sensual lust, all lust for existence, all ignorance. It uproots conceit. I am change and new beginnings to life, birthdays, new year, wedding boredom. What exists is changeable, and what is not changeable does not exist. So you can see that our, again, the same topic is our consciousness. It's like illusion. Our perception is also like a mirage. So it's same thing. Like our mind is more diverse than anything else. So we can think. It is there is no limitation of our thinking. There's a limitation of the form, the rupa, but there's no limitation, no limited space of our thinking, our thought process. But we have to understand, we have to believe that this, our thought process, these are impermanence. Sometimes, according to the, sometimes when you look at our thought process, some of our past thought we can't remember. Sometimes some idea comes into appears into our mind, and it suddenly disappears. Where is it? But yeah, sometimes we can't even our dream, because our mind is still there. Mind is still our is manifesting. Some mind still on works. So sometimes we can't remember our dream as well. How is, where is it? Where is it? So, like, we can back to our the truth of impermanence. Actually, of course, there are so many explanations behind the dream, so many explanations about the why we lost our memory, so many explanations like why our thought process, some of our previous thought, we can't be hold on, we can't be remember. But the truth, I mean, according to this context, we just say that, I mean, it's all the thought process is impermanent. Our form is impermanent. We need to accept the truth of impermanence. That is the one of the practice along the path of awakening and enlightenment. So again, I repeat this term. Most of the time we like to disagree that our body is decaying, our health is declining, or we are approaching to, you know to our final breath. Every single day we are approaching to our, to die. One day we need to accept the truth of the dead. So it's very that's why in the Buddhist world, this language is very common. They said life is uncertain, death is certain. So the truth is that we all need to accept the truth of impermanence, the reality of impermanence. So we can't escape from that truth. Since this is arising, it will be perish. So what is rising? That is perishes, or that is ceases. In the same way, since I was born, I need to accept the truth of that. That is the one of the key message to to think, to reflect about the truth of impermanence. Now the second one. So second one, like the truth of suffering. That this is the dukkha, the truth of suffering. So as maybe we discussed in our maybe first class, yeah, about something about the dukkha and dukkha samudaya, the truth of the origin of suffering and the cessation of suffering. Anyway, here the suffering is the truth. It's the second truth. It is truth. So to understand suffering as suffering, this is the wisdom. Like suffering, I mean, as we again, I just give it the term, like in Pali and Sanskrit, or in the Eastern language, South Asian language, they frequently say that dukkha. They always use the term dukkha every time, even still now today. So it's a dukkha. Everything is dukkha. Birth is dukkha. Aging is dukkha. You know, something happen, like committing some not not happy part or not unhappy part. I mean, some unpleasurable moment. That is dukkha. So dukkha is translated as dissatisfaction or unease or stress. Actually, in in the in the Eastern language, in the past, in the philosophy, we don't have this term stress, but it later it added and it became part of the dukkha. But they explain everything like a dukkha. So it covered all of the terms: pain, stress, or some psychological um, pain, or anxiety. So this all are dukkha. It's all a suffering. So back to connecting to the impermanence. Like for example, sometimes we listen the nice music. So when you go to the when you listen the nice music, like we feel very happy in our heart. Our heart is our mood change, but it's for a certain period. It may be for 5 minutes, it may be for 1 hour, or maybe for a day. But again, our mood changing. We don't we don't know, it's intentionally or unintentionally. Our mood is changing time to time, and sometimes we want to be happy. We want to return back that happy part, but we can't do it very often. It is dukkha. It is suffering. Even the happiness itself is a part of suffering. Happiness is the suffering too. So, like the moment of happiness is not for a long time; is for only certain period. So, Buddhist doctrine, Buddhist teaching, it mentioned happiness itself also part of a suffering. Maybe you can say Buddhist teaching, it can be the it's not, it's a pessimistic pessimistic philosophy probably, but yes, it's not pessimistic, but it is the mention it from ultimate standpoint that our happiness does not lasting for forever. So Buddhist way, they said nirvana is the highest happiness. So like nirvana, there is no birth, there will be no death. It's a mental state of the mind. It's a kind of it is a state of the realization that stable condition, it have a ultimate happiness, ultimate ease, rapture as well. So we came to know from the from the early Buddhist scriptures about 8 kinds of suffering or 8 kinds of dukkha. What are they? Birth, aging, illness, death, associating with what is displacing, separation from what is pleasing, not getting what is wanting, and clinging to the five aggregates. So clinging to five aggregates, these are such as form, feeling, perception, for mental formation, and consciousness. It's all a dukkha. So so just as we discussed that our happy moment, it's for certain subtle, for certain period. It's not for longer term. It's for a few moments we have this moment. Few moments we have this happiness. Still we're still struggling. So maybe you remember that last week we talked about the nourishment of consciousness, vijnana ahara. Like our mind always looking for something. Our consciousness can't stay alone without some nourishment. So this nourishment, maybe someone can be happy by traveling. So it's some mental nourishment. Maybe I like to personally. I also sometimes like travel a lot. So it's my nourishment somehow. So someone maybe like to listen music or watching movie. So our consciousness is nourished with some of the certain, certain phenomenal action. So these are, is for because we want to escape the truth. We need some nourishment. So consciousness always seeking for nourishment. That's why the term we always use in Pali and Sanskrit, vijnana ahara. Ahara means the food for consciousness. Maybe you can translate in that way too. So so now that we can see that our our suffering, like the moment of happiness itself suffering. Unhappiness, of course, grief, pain, lamentations, these are suffering. So anicca, dukkha, anatta, all component, all are suffering. As the same, all component are impermanence. So now we are okay. Yeah, this we discussed already. So now we talked about a little bit about the all component is anicca, sorry, anatta, non-self. That's a huge topic. What is self and non-self? There are so many explanations about how can we say the self? Maybe sometime in English, I saw the translation, they use the soul. The term soul is more like a spirit. So my soul for you, like people explain expression, that Shakespeare literature or Homer, like they said, my soul is for you for forever. Something like this kind of, So self and non-self. So non-self in the Buddhist scripture, it explains about one of the three characteristics and one of the truth as well. So self, it said Pali or Sanskrit. Pali said atta and Sanskrit said atman. A non-self, anatta or anatman. So atta is is a self. In other religions who teach that there is an unchanging and eternal thing inside us. The world changes, but the soul does not change. The soul is the doer and enjoyer of all one's deeds. That's quite interesting. So, it is quite a straightforward, like atta. Another way we can explain the term the self is like a permanency. I, me, myself, himself, herself. This is mine. This is mine. This is self. It's some emphasizing to to claim that this is mine. Oh, this is me, this is I. It's all about self. But non-self is in in I'm sorry, the term. Sorry, yeah. Okay, so I think I need to a little bit more explanation about the self as I write down here. Yeah, before I come back to non-self. So I continue. The word self was originated from the word of meaning to breathe and came to mean to something breathing, something with life, individual to something existing to the depths of life, that is soul, something with spirit of self, individual self, and or substance of self, the substance of all things, their reality. Human body perish at death, and soul is imperishable. So let me continue. How the term self is explained in the in by the Buddha himself. And actually he mentioned this term self many ways in many different in, in many different chapter, many different volumes of the Tripitaka. But it is very commonly said that these are second discourses like Anatta Lakkana Sutra, the first discourse and second discourse. This second sermon of the Buddha after his enlightenment. In this sermon, he gave the one brief definition about self, the idea of the self. He said the idea of self is imagination, such as like impermanence, false belief, which has no corresponding reality, and it produces harmful throw of me and mine, selfish desire, craving, attachment, and hatred, ill will, conceit, pride, egoism, and other defilements, impurities, and problems. So, the self, the concept of I, a mine, or myself, it have too much emphasizing. It based on our ego, our pride. We have a conceit that this is my position, this is my property, this is my son, or this is my wife, or this is my husband. These all are very, they're emphasized to, it's based on the emphasizing based on the attachment. You can see how much attachment it has, how much clings people are need to their, to their own viewpoint. So this is completely the clinging to own view, or this bias sense is completely false belief. This is illusion. This is not healthy. It's impurities, and it creates more problems. The world now have a lot of problems, I mean, which are based on others' ego. Because of ego, because of pride, many people they don't humble. They like to claim. They like to be, they like to sometimes they like to. Some people you can see the nature. They don't know how to be humble. They don't know how to speak sorry. This is a quality actually. To be humble is a quality. To also speaking as to apology to someone for their own behavior, it is also quality, your human quality. So many people they refuse to do that because there is strong concept of their self, is ego, is a conceit, and is a pride. And now back to the definition of non-self. What is non-self? The term anatta, or non-self, refers to the doctrine of non-self, there is no unchanging permanent self, soul, or the essence of phenomena. Uh, Walter Rahula, he was one of the very pioneer, very prominent scholar in 60s and 70s, last century. He was his book What the Buddha Taught. In this text, he mentioned the doctrine of non-self is natural result of or corollary to the analysis of five aggregates and the teachings of conditioned genesis. Actually, we are in our next, we're coming back later. So we can see that the non-self, to understand the non-self, we can see how through our analyzation of our five aggregates. These are form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. Through analyzing these five aggregates, it is actually based on our practice, based on our level of our wisdom. Then you can see that this is a non-self. So this is actually a long topic to discussion about this. So I like to I like to give the straightforward statement from the Anatta Lakshana Sutra, or the discourse of non-self characteristics from Samyutta Nikaya. It is the second sermon of the Buddha. So in this sutra, the Buddha state form, feelings, perception, mental fabrications, consciousness is not self. That means that just now we just mentioned that our five aggregates is not self. That means these five aggregates are non-self. So he continued, for instance, if consciousness were the self, this consciousness would not lend itself to dis-ease, no happiness. It would be possible to say, with regard to consciousness, let me consciousness be thus. Let me consciousness not be thus. But precisely because consciousness is not self, consciousness lends itself to dis-ease, and it is not possible to say with regard to consciousness, let me consciousness be thus, let me consciousness not be thus. And he continued, thus, monks, any form, feeling, perception, or mental formation and consciousness, whatsoever that is past, future, or present, internal and external, blatant or subtle, common or sublime, far or near, every consciousness is to be seen as it actually is with right determined as this is not mine, this is not myself, this is not what I am. So it just it is it is a it, the statement we can say like sorry, this is not mine, this is not myself, and this is not what I am. So again, I just back to the impermanence and suffering. So according to the nature of impermanence, nothing exists, everything is impermanent. Our feeling is impermanent, feeling like an illusion, consciousness like a feeling like a mirage, or consciousness like an illusion, So we can see that, how changing. So we emphasized ourself, like, like, this is my feeling, this is my thought, this is my idea, this is my view. That is completely wrong. That's why Buddha said directly, these are the false view. You can't be it can't be emphasized. It's the extreme way. Somehow it makes the conceit, it makes somehow like an ego, a strong ego. So practicing non-self, it helps us to reduce the viewpoint of egoism, our conceit, or our, you know, our strong bias. There's no bias. So we just need to be just thinking or translating our general language. We just try to understand this is not mine, this is not myself, and this is not what I am. So, like, this is not what I am. It's a main explanation, but it's what I say. Like, for example, Sanjoy in right now, in 2021, the appearance I have, but 10 years later, it's not the same. My hair will be gray, something, it's decaying. So you cannot be isolated 10 years later, or 10 years from today, or 10 years before the Sanjoy. How, I mean, changing, the body is changing, but, you know, but this, he is changing. His appearance is changing moment to moment, years by years, so approaching to the death. So, we cannot be claim that this is what I am, is exist. The form I have right now, it is exist forever. I can't blame. If I say this is completely wrong view. This is impermanence. And of course, decaying and approaching to die, it is suffering. And it is non-self. So I continue that another sutra. This sutra is a simile of the snake sutra from Majjhima Nikaya, sutra number 22. It strongly mentioned that our non-self, the is like a ditti, like self. Ditti means like a, how to say, viewpoint, view. In Buddhist scripture, if you see the term ditti, it means a view. View itself a wrong view. And if you also can see wrong view, it is itself a wrong view. But on the right view, it always mentions samadhitti. So if you see the term view, it is a wrong view. If you see the term wrong view, itself also wrong view. So there are 6 standpoints for views or wrong views. According to the, it was a very nice conversation, we can say, from Majjhima Nikaya, Sutra number 22. It is very old, brilliant conversation as well. But from this conversation, like this analyzing part, I just pick up the main idea. The 5 aggregates, like 5 aggregates, we know that form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness of the mind. So form itself, this is mine, I am this is myself. So this term, point of form, like my pen, this is mine, I am this, and this is myself, is absolutely wrong view. Actually, this statement was uh, clearly. Buddha emphasized actually this word, and this is he said that between the difference between the ordinary person and the noble person. So ordinary being, they always emphasized, like those who not have a wisdom, who doesn't practice well the eightfold noble path, or who doesn't have an insight, or inner quality did not develop, though they are considered as putujana or ordinary beings. So these ordinary beings always claim like this is mine, I am this, and this is myself. So this kind of claim, this kind of thinking, this kind of perception, or this formation or feeling, these are absolutely wrong view. So in addition to these five aggregates, like number five, fifth one, the mind or consciousness, like in the sutra mentioned, what is seen, heard, sensed, cognized, encountered, sought, mentality, pondered as this is mine, I am this is myself. Absolutely, these are the wrong and wrong view. You know, so I just pick up this part from the discourse of the snake, and of the last one, it's also said, the world and the self are the same. If the people are thinking like this way, the world and the self are the same. Having passed away, I shall be eternal, fixed, everlasting, of an unchangeable nature. I shall remain forever exactly so as this is mine, I am this is myself. So, of course, this kind of notion, this kind of perception, these are the wrong view. It's not truth in the sense of ultimate reality. So, now that how the noble one, how the noble person, and or the people who has a higher level of practice, he thinks or his perception, the noble disciple or the noble, the good practitioner, he said, material form or rupa, feeling, perception, formation, he realized that this is not mine. I'm not this, and this is not myself. He also continued, what is seen, heard, sensed, cognized, encountered, sought, mentally pondered thus. This is not mine. I'm not this. This is not myself. And in the last one, he said, and this standpoint for views, namely, this is self, this the world. After that, I shall be permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. I shall endure as long as eternity. This too he regrets, he regards thus, this is not mine, I am not this is not myself. Consequently, he is not anxious about something that does not exist. So now he has a, after he realized the truth of the five aggregates, so he understood, yes, this is not mine, this is not I, so this is not myself, you know. So it's a very, again I mentioned that this is the highest level of realization. So it is a quality of the practice, how much we we practice of non-self, we can be go in depth to our feeling, perception, and we can analyze our consciousness. We can see clearly everything is impermanent. And since we see clearly everything is impermanent, we can see the existence of suffering, because our, you know, moment to moment, time to time, everything is changing, is suffering. Changing itself is suffering. Then, of course, this all are not belongings to me. I'm nobody there. You know, what what am I saying right now? What am I doing right now? It's not same like and 2 hours before. It's not same like 2 hours later. Now I feel comfortable sitting on the chair. But if I sit on chair for this in this comfort zone for 24 hours, random, obviously my body became pain. There's no movement, you know. So you can see the reality of impermanence, the reality of suffering, and you can see that the reality of non-self. So so that's why nirvana is the highest form that the Buddha discovered, and um, he emphasized to his followers that to observe the practice of, I mean, to one should be have an aim to acquire the state of nirvana. The nirvana is the highest bliss. So maybe sometimes it can be have a some dialogue. Sometimes you can be think about that. Is nirvana self or non-self? Maybe you can think about that regarding to this discussion. What is the nirvana? Is it the self or non-self? It's a big discussion topic. So, however, that we just concluding that three characteristics, like the three characteristics are impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So, we're concluding from the quoted from Dhammapada, one of the texts from Kuddaka Nikaya. So, in this text, it clearly mentioned all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. When one sees this with insight wisdom, one becomes wary of dukkha, that is khanda, like five aggregates. So one became wary of five aggregates, such as form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness. So this is the path to purity. Then the blessed one continued. All conditioned phenomena are dukkha or suffering. When one sees this with insight wisdom, one becomes wary of dukkha or five aggregates. This is the path to purity. And he said, all phenomena are without self or non-self. When one sees this with insight wisdom, one becomes wary of dukkha. This is path of purity. So I hope that this like this this definition from the of the three characteristics from the term of the Buddha, maybe it can make it a more clear understanding about the truth of suffering, the truth of non-self, and the truth of impermanence. So these are the reality. So that's why it mentioned that the three things, the three terms are widely, popularly mentioned in the scripture as the three marks or three characteristics of Buddhism. So may I ask that do you have any? Please now we can time for discussion. So now we can continue to have some dialogue.
Sanjoy, this is Catherine Bowen.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, I have a question. It might be difficult to discuss right now, but it comes up in many of the classes, and you're talking about nirvana today. And you usually start those comments with nirvana or nibbana, no birth, no death, but then right after that, you commonly say that it's a mental state. So I have problems with that. I mean, if you take it literally, no birth, no death, which is sometimes what we see when we read, it'll says that, but yet you always sort of footnote that with it's a mental state. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Uh, sure. Okay, so nirvana. I mean, okay. So this is the one definition. Like, okay, I came from the karmic aspect, karmic viewpoint. From the karma, they said, if you do good, good things come to you back. If you do bad, bad things come to you back. So in the past, based on the belief in karma or not believe in karma, so some philosophy, some school was evolved, such as eternalism, is eternalist school and nihilist school. So some eternalist school they believe that after you die, after someone die, the soul is permanent and it existing for many lives. So there's no extinction of their soul. And nihilist school, the belief, after the die, there's no existence. I mean, there's nothing. So there's no consequence of karma. So the concept of nirvana, it was very old term. It was exist before the Buddha even. So when the Buddha discovered the truth, he said that I discovered the truth of nirvana. So therefore, to them, the people who believe that nirvana is this the after death, someone like it is the one of the realm after death. So for them, Buddha said like nirvana is not a realm. Nirvana is not the like a heaven or hell, this kind of realm. So nirvana, it's the extinction, the final extinction, such as like a candle. So when I blew the candle light, the flame disappeared. We can't find this flame anymore. So nirvana is such a like a blown out. So it's a final extinction. Since in the theory of karma, we have a according to the Buddhist concept of karma, we have a birth and rebirth. But nirvana is extinction of birth and the extinction of rebirth and extinction of death. So if there is no birth, there should be no death. This one aspect, from the according to the one of the from the aspect of karmic theory or karma theory. And then back to I say that nirvana is a mental state. Well, nirvana is the bliss of ultimate freedom. So another term of nirvana, we can translate as liberation. We can translate as freedom. So what kind of freedom it is? Freedom, it can be the like economic freedom, social freedom, or mental freedom. What kind of freedom? So coming to the in briefly definition, nirvana is the mental state that freed from greed, hatred, delusions, competitions, animosity, fear. So all the like name, fame, like heir to worldly beings, according to Buddhist term. So nirvana is this mental state that freed from greed, hatred, delusion. So these things are we can be from that aspect, from intellectual point of view or from practice point of view. We can be say or we can be also describe nirvana is the mental state. I think, am I clear?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. So is there any more? We still have some time, so go ahead, please. Ask some if you have any kind of doubt. Or even I myself, we also have a struggle to understand.
Sanjay,
Yep.
I have a question. Can I ask be
Sure.
the next to ask a question?
Sure.
Nagarjuna, the Indian
Yeah.
philosopher, I think this story is from him. He said about the man who believed there was a snake in the in his house. So the snake is in the wall. So instead, he searched for the elephant in the house. That story I didn't understand. I was hoping maybe it sounds familiar to you. Like I said, I believe that story was from Nagarjuna. So the man is looking for the serpent, but instead he searched for the elephant in the house and not finding the elephant, he then believed that the snake is not in the house. And this has something to do with non-self. As you know, Nagarjuna was a big philosopher,
Right.
proponent on non-self. Please, your opinion.
Thank you for bringing out this light. Actually, Nagarjuna is from the in between the first to second century, and he was after 800 years later after the Buddha's passing away. He appeared from the South India, from Andhra Pradesh. He was born. So actually, Nagarjuna, he brought up this part. He said that from his, it is the, actually, I'm sorry that for our participants and for our attendance, like Nagarjuna, this concept, he said middle way philosophy or Madhyamaka Karika. So his concept, he said that like I'm sorry that let me recite some Sanskrit. Aniruddha Anutpadam Anuchedam Anusvatam Anekartam Anakartam Anagamam Anigamam. So eight negations. He talked about eight negations, and through eight negations, he said that he explained that Nirvana is I worship to the Buddha who discovered the truth of Nirvana, which is non-self, and who discovered is dependent origination, and this is the middle way. So the story, actually, I'm not familiar that story. Probably this story you say that elephant and snake, probably this is from Chittamatra, maybe Yogacharin. I'm not sure whether Nagarjuna had this experience, but what I understand that I got your point about non-self, this part. Nagarjuna brought this this, this idea about non-self. I mean, he said that his way of the nirvana, sorry, the the nirvana is the non-self, the practice of non-self. The nir, I mean, he brought the emptiness is the key terms. So non-self is emptiness. Emptiness is non-self, and non-self is emptiness. Emptiness is nirvana. Nirvana is emptiness. And he also said emptiness as a form of understanding dependent origination. So he put the metaphoric terms emptiness as the key way of, to understand the concept of nirvana. So his form of emptiness, another definition he provides, is empty for what? Empty, it is empty. It is empty for what? So he answered, it's empty of self. There's no self. There's no I, no mind. There's no mind. So this is the Nagarjuna's statement. But there are so many discussion actually. This discussion came the later on. As I mentioned that we are in the early Buddhist scriptures, they are very very root text, but this text Nagarjuna Mula Madhyamaka Karika or another text he have Ratnavali, it came the later on. Maybe I'm sorry, maybe you are right. Yeah, you are right, because maybe this story from Ratnavali is another uh, another text of Nagarjuna. So he came back. Nagarjuna always start the point with emptiness. So his main idea is everything is empty. Since all is empty, everything is possible. This is Nagarjuna's statement, and he brought up everything's conclusion because it was a big debate during that period. So he has a debate with the Brahminic scholar, and he wants to defend the Buddhism. And he also bring up this part like in his sutra, in his text Mula Madhyamaka Karika, or the text of the middle way philosophy. In this text, he encountered that uh, the middle way. He quoted from Kaccayana Gutta Sutra. That's today we discussed. He quoted that this is existence. So this is the wrong, this is extreme view. Existence is extreme view, and non-existence is also extreme view. Avoiding these two extreme views, the I salute the teaching of the practice of middle way. It's Nagarjuna also quoted this term in Mula Madhyamaka Karika, his text. So he came up with the, I think, yeah, he came up with the Nagarjuna is again, he came up with the point of emptiness. Everything, he compared, and he used the term metaphoric way to explain, to understand it can be the empty. It's empty of self. That means the non-self.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So is there any more? So I hope that, so that means that I understand that we understand all, isn't it? Okay, Clara is laughing. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for all of your kind attention, and I hope that we continue our class. I mean, so it is just a brief explanation. So as I in a concluding part, I just mentioned that the teaching of middle way and the teaching of three characteristics such as like a impermanence, non-self, and suffering is based on the early Buddhist scriptures. And again, I just repeated that early Buddhist scripture, early Buddhism, we categorize from the time of the historical Buddha to until the second Buddhist council, like first 100 years. During that period, text was evolved. All are in Nikaya and Agama text. So based on these scriptures, we discussed, and also that the later on after many after a few hundred years, like Nagarjuna came in the 2nd century, he brought a lot of ideas. Then Asanga, Basubandhu, then Shantideva, or like until Atisha, it can, this is all a later period explanation. But of course, that all of their scholars' opinion or Pandita or the scholars from Nalanda University is all are based on the early Buddhist teachings and the evolved the teachings. Still now, the teaching is expanding and evolving. Yeah. So thank you so much for all of your kind attention.